willpower doesn't work. Why? Hey guys, I have been thinking a lot lately about a question I've gotten a handful of times in comments around willpower. I've been told that I have this amazing amount of willpower, or I've had comments that are saying the reason I got fat was because I was a lazy bum without willpower. So I've thought a lot about this, and I wanted to share my reflections with you because maybe you can get something out of it too. Here's my thoughts on it. Why I have failed every diet is, one, I feel like they just weren't addressing the whole alcoholics can't have alcohol. That's a big thing. But I'm talking more from a psychological and emotional point of view, not so much a actual diet / what we're actually eating. Looking back, why I believe I failed on every diet. And this is not looking at the food part of it. This is just the psychological component of it. Because I still feel like carnivore is the best choice for me. It is removing alcohol from an alcoholic, removing carbs and sugar from a carb and sugar addict. So, no argument there for me. But the psychological component is willpower doesn't work. Why? Because I have never been able to force myself to do anything that I wanted. If that was the case, then I'd be like Heidi Klum's supermodel because I forced myself to do it. But willpower is like being a tyrant to ourselves. It is forcing an involuntary decision on ourselves. We have not deep down inside, or at least I haven't, agreed to this choice. I'm forcing it on myself. However, making a choice, choosing, this is, I think, where the power comes in. This is where I feel the most powerful, is making a voluntary decision. It doesn't mean I want to do it. It doesn't mean I love it, but I made the conscious choice to choose that. And because I truly believe in integrity and being whole and complete just the way I am right now, if I make that choice, then I need to stick with that choice. It gives me no other options. Scott pointed out something quite excellent. When I make that conscious choice, that voluntary decision, I am getting buy-in from myself. I am articulating and discussing with my inner self, what am I willing to trade off? What am I willing to do to ensure that I make this choice? Willpower is not. Willpower is trying to push a round peg through a square hole. That is why I failed every time I've tried to do it, because I never got my own buy-in. There is a wonderful quote from Jordan Peterson's first book, The 12 Rules for Life. It says, "You have a nature. You can play the tyrant to it, but you will certainly rebel. How hard can you force yourself to work and sustain your desire to work? How can you sacrifice to your partner before generosity turns to resentment? What is it that you actually love? What is it that you genuinely want? Before you can articulate your own standards of value, you must see yourself as a stranger. Then you must get to know yourself. What do you find valuable or pleasurable? How much leisure, enjoyment, and reward do you require so that you feel like more than a beast of burden? How must you treat yourself so you won't kick over the traces and smash up the corral? You could force yourself through daily grind and kick your dog in frustration when you come home. You could watch the precious days tick by, or you could learn how to entice yourself into sustainable, productive activity. Do you ask yourself what you want? Do you negotiate fairly with yourself? Or are you a tyrant with yourself as a slave?" Now, that sounds all fine and dandy, right? But the real question is, how do we actually choose? How did I actually choose? A few of the things that I have found to be fundamental to this is renewing my integrity or restoring my integrity when it's incomplete. And what I mean by that is, if I say something, I do what I say I'm going to do, or if the minute I know I can't, I let the individual, including myself, know. I made a promise to do XYZ, well, things happened and I wasn't able to. What am I going to put into place to make sure that doesn't happen, that my word has value? This is the bedrock of who I am. Another thing I found is doing the small things in life, those small things that bug me, leaving, a bell from Christmas sitting out for an entire year when it was just so easy to put it up. The paper's on the desk. This is doing what I say I'm going to do and doing it. It helps build that level of integrity. Normally, and this is what I experienced when I first started doing carnivore, was we go through a crisis. Whatever that looks like, health, death, family, financial. My crisis was going to the emergency room thinking I was actually going to die. It helped me realize my selfishness towards everyone around me and that I had put my wants ahead of everybody's needs. I always say this is not a guilt trip towards Amanda, this is just reality. And I don't feel shame about it, it's just more acknowledging it. So please don't take that as I'm guilting myself, because it just is what it is. I did excellent for the first 6 weeks because that memory was just fresh in my head, but then it faded. And then willpower had to start to kick in because I was motivated by an event, that crisis, then willpower. But then the willpower faded, and then I started struggling. So the next question is when that fades, what happens? Or maybe you want to get to the point of being able to choose without going through a crisis. These are the steps that I have now discovered to get there with or without a crisis event. So here is my take on how I've gotten to choosing voluntarily with myself to do things that would normally require willpower. The first step is honest self-reflection. I mean, those words make plenty of sense to everybody, but how do you actually do this? And the thing is it requires, I think, effort, time, and the willingness to have an open mind. I spent 32 years of my life honestly lying to myself. It's not that bad, Amanda. No, you can't wear, size 12 jeans anymore. It's fine. You're in size 16, 18, 20, 24s. And the number just kept getting larger as time went on. And I decided to stop that. I decided to stop looking through the lens of it's okay. That was a big change for me. I decided to be open to the possibility that I was wrong, the way I was viewing things, the way I was viewing myself. And that is a hard pill to swallow, to admit to ourselves that we aren't always right. That is how I started it. And for this specific journey, how I got to the weight I got to, how did I get to 360 pounds? Obviously, the answer is one bite at a time, but not food. Mentally, how did I allow myself to get there? And it's not even allow myself. How did I become okay with that? I was very active when I was younger. I may have been 200 pounds, but I was biking 15 to 16 miles a day to the point where I was 32, 360 pounds, having to use a walker, not leaving the house for months at a time. And it was eating my feelings. That is where I got. Instead of dealing with the uncomfortable shame, guilt, fear, because fear was a really big one I had to admit to myself. That is how I got there, eating my feelings instead of going through the pain and discomfort of feeling them and digging to the root cause of why I felt that way. That is the number one step, is honest self-reflection and finding the root cause of why the feeling bothers myself. And I still do that to this day, by the way. Step 2, figure out my values so I know what to aim for. If I don't know what I value in this life, value to the core, what guides me, how can I decide anything? If I don't know who I am, or at least part of who I am, how can I advance? How can I know what to aim for? And if we're not aiming for anything, we're aiming for nothing and we get nowhere. Because that is what I've experienced. Feeling lost and just like I'm treading water. And when I think back on those moments, it's always because I had no aim. I didn't know where I was going. I was literally just treading water. And it is I feel like a terrible feeling. You feel lost in the dark with no direction. A really good quote from Jordan Peterson's second book says, "You must sacrifice something of your manifold potential in exchange for something real in life. aim at something, discipline yourself, or suffer the consequences. And what is that consequence? All the suffering of life with none of its meaning. Is there a better description of hell? In my eyes, no. Hell is where you stand when you have nothing, when you feel despair. To me, despair is having no aim. And I'm not just talking about goals of, I want to have this job, or I want to make X money, or whatever. My aim in life is to be better tomorrow than I am today, and also to make an impact, however big or small it's going to be. I value people. And that is, to my core, the most fundamental thing of me, is I value people and I value integrity. Step 3 is decide what you really want. I'm not talking about materialistic things. Things actually don't matter to me. A thing is a thing. When I die, I'm not taking it with me. What do I want for my life? What do I want for the people around me? What do I want deep down in my soul? What moves me? That is a hard conversation, and sometimes we have to admit maybe I wasn't aiming at the best things. Finding my why. If you've watched my channel, then you've probably heard me say this before. My why is to make an impact on the world. And right now, what I've gone through, the pain, the suffering, all of this in my life, I am using that to help you, or hopefully someone you know, or someone that I may never meet, because it is so easy to see ourselves in other people's lives, and that is actually why my channel is set up the way it is. I don't know everything for myself. How in the world can I tell anybody else what to do? But maybe you might see something in my actions that you reflect on yourself. A huge one for me is, what do I really want? I want to make an impact. I want to be about and in this world. So, when people tell me carnivore is restrictive or you can't minimize your food groups, all I can say to them is, in no way, shape, or form is carnivore restrictive. It has removed my obsession with food. Food is nutrients, period. Yeah, I've stumbled and I will in the future, but it's not this constant 24/7 obsession. If I can't have cake and cookies and chips or whatever, I don't care, because it has given me my life back. What's more important, eating cake, cookies, a sweet potato, or doing something I absolutely love, passionate about, and making an impact on the world? I would absolutely give up all the sugar for the rest of my life and never have another bite if I can continue down this path and be participating in life, not just suffering through it. The last step, which is step 4, take actions to address my demons. What I mean by that is, I have hidden from myself terrible childhood trauma, literally locked in a box in the back of my head, never dealing with it. Things that I've done wrong, things I feel guilty or shameful, they all get stuffed in a closet, and that closet gets overfilling and things start bursting out. How to deal with that is, do the small things. Pull one problem out at a time and deal with it. It can have nothing to do with food, nothing to do with what you're most focused on. But the second we start to get our life in order, things get easier to put up. Imagine having a just absolutely disaster of a room unorganized. It starts with putting one thing in place, and then the second, and then the third. And it's this small momentum that we build up that eventually then the room becomes just immaculate, clean. We know where everything is. Our minds are like that. My mind was like that. I don't face the big demons. I'm just a little monster slayer. So I'm going to kill the cockroaches that I find in the room, or the bugs. And then as I get stronger, I level up. Hopefully some of the nerds get this. I level up and I get stronger and I believe in myself more and I restore my integrity. I believe I can do it. So then I start taking on the rats, and then I start taking on everything up to the dragon that was hiding into the closet. This is not a one time and done kind of thing. It is a rinse and repeat. I, to this day, and I will for the rest of my life, do steps 1 through 4 over and over, because the minute I think things are golden, a weed pops up, or I find something out of place and I have to go through it again. I fundamentally feel like this is a lifelong process. We aren't born perfect, we do not die perfect, and it is a constant, always trying to move forward and better myself. I want to leave you with one last quote from this book. It says, "Voluntary confrontation with a feared, hated, or despised obstacle is curative. Face your demons, face my demons. They are never as scary as we think they are. It gives me no other options." Ow. Now, the reason I think this my dog's bad. So, the soap police. I really don't know where I was at with this.
You were talking about